Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice. Now it should all come together for you. Here in part 3, we're going to talk about Revelation 13. In the last part, we talked about how the devil was thrown down. He was thrown down in more than one way, right? When the people of God kept fighting to the death to do what's right, and a lot of them were, a lot of them didn't fight. They turned the other cheek, and they were thrown into the lion's den and crucified, and so on and so forth. Okay, and so they ended up triumphing over the devil by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, their action-based testimony. And the devil was hurled down, right? He was thrown into the world. Instead of being a spiritual being or a being that was still partially spiritual, he was hurled into the world and completely profaned and taken out of the kind of divine martial art order, okay? Because to some degree he was there to test people, and because he wasn't following the rules, okay, he's thrown to the earth and becomes some kind of worldly dog. So it says they triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, the actions, right, the essence, the drawing the Spirit of God and living it. And they did not love their lives enough as to shrink from death. Okay. It went on to say that the dragon was enraged, right, the devil, and went off to wage war against the rest of the offspring of those who keep God's commands, right? Those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. So he said, whoever's left, he's going after them, right, to finish them off. So they're already being screened out before that, right? They were already being screened out before that. And then when the devil was officially hurled down, which has happened already, he goes after what's left of them. And of course, they're not supposed to persecute me, because we don't see that they're not talking about Jesus. When the devil goes after the woman, okay, he fails to get her. When he goes after her son, he fails to get her. He doesn't persecute her. So the people in the churches, they're not following the script. And of course, in a sense, it's true anyway, because God's in charge of it. But there's people who are trying to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they're really just dropping the ball left and right. They're some kind of crazy people or something. So now let's go to Revelation 13. Let's go down to verse 3. The first part is kind of, it's a lot of explaining it. I'm just going to zoom in on these key martial art parts. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. So it's like with science and technology, the whole world is filled with wonder, right? Artificial intelligence. And they're too afraid. Those people who are outside the divine order, right? So there's a divine order, those who obey God through me, okay? Which is basically nobody right now. So it's those in the spiritual realm. My parents would blame us, so they can kind of be counted as being in the divine order. And then there's the whole rest of the world is what it's saying. And there's a lot of things that make it clear that that's what they mean, right? They say the inhabitants of the earth. We say, well, that's everybody, including, the people are being screened out. No, they're referring to the people who aren't being screened out for doing what's right in the divine order. Not people who read the Bible and think they're doing the right thing, which there's a lot of people who probably fit that description, but people who are actually obeying God through me. Everyone else is following the beast, whether it's through the church, mosque, synagogue, whether it's through the New Age movements, whether it's, as a hermit, they're following the beast's path, right? The way, the truth, and the life. The truth is you can't cheat me out of my right to lead and be right with God. Okay, those who are my sheep know my voice. They know my actions. They know that I'm telling the truth. They know that I'm Christ. And when, I made minor mistakes in my videos in the past, they know that doesn't mean anything. They know they're running sops, trying to confuse the situation, but I'm actually the top martial artist ever possible, and that's one of the most overkill things in human history. Okay. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worshiped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? This part is very key here. They said, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? Where God is asking in Isaiah in the Old Testament, he's saying, who is like me? These false idols are not like me. In Psalm 106, it says, who can proclaim the mighty acts of God? The Lord is a warrior, Psalm 89. God anointed a warrior. So when they say at the end of the Bible, right, Revelation 13, the last book of the Bible, they say, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? And they're worshiping the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worship the beast. So they're fair weather. They're scared. They're scared to have their flesh harmed. They're not like Samson or David or Jesus or Stephen the Martyr or John the Baptist. You see that sharp distinction that's made. They are cowards. And it says later on in Revelation that outside the gate are the cowardly. So they're like, who's like the beast? Who can wage war against it? We're scared. Okay, on some punk stuff. Completely tail tucked. And a lot of them are in the military and police and gangs, like and biker gangs, and they act like they're tough, but they're scared to their very core. They're scared at the thought of even being a man for a moment. Goes on to say the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise its authority for 42 months. Right? So it's given, it's blasphemy against God. Now, if the word is God and Christ was chastising the Pharisees, you think I'm not supposed to say these things? No, I'm supposed to say these things. Okay? That's the right thing to do. The Bible has that right. So you see the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise its authority for 42 months, which again is a symbolic number, not a literal number. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. So he's slandering he's speaking out against the idea of being right with God. They're pretending that mere betas, criminals, people working for a corrupt system, things like this are greater than the transcendent heroes who die for moral precision. You can die in the most painful way, for the state, but you're just dying for the state, and that's stupidity. You have to die for moral precision to be a man. And if you're a female, you have to live and die for moral precision to be a woman. There's no other way to look at it. There's no other possible interpretation. Everything else is just laughable. So it was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. It's talking about conquering the flesh. It's implicit. Okay? All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life. Now, does it say it conquers Jesus in the flesh? No. Only a complete moron would get that from the scripture. Only a crazy Satanist who's probably a child molester would get that from this. So again, all the inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose name have not been written in the Lamb's book of life. Not people who think because they go to church and because they follow the mainstream that they're saved, okay? But only the people who are in my book of life, only the people that I separate the sheep from the goats, who I say. The Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world, the idea of the righteous person who kept trying to reason with them, whose spirit, when he comes into the flesh, he keeps getting killed, right? From the start, but not in the end. That's not the script in the end. Okay? And if you were to interpret that way, there'd have to be if you're going to interpret it literally like that, there'd have to be a lot of people rallying to me, being screened out together, at the same time. So we know that they're interpreting the scripture wrong. Whoever has ears, let them hear. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patience. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the parts of God's people. Unlike the churches and everyone else, I'm like the only one highlighting characteristics because they don't want you to think in terms of reality. What does it mean to be patient? What does it mean to endure? What does it mean to be sharp, insightful, wise? To follow the state? To be in a loud church? No. So let's go ahead and go down to verse 14. Because of the signs, it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. So these people who look a certain way, which is symbolic of their culture. Okay, those people like me who say, hey, I'm not going to look like you. I'm not going to act like you. I'm not going to join the crowd. Okay, who are in the divine order are the ones who are right with God. Okay, and everybody who, does God's work is going to be screened out. And since they're ignoring the part of the scripture where they're not supposed to persecute me because there's this flawless entrance in Revelation 19, right? Jesus coming back in his glory, okay, which means you leave my flesh alone. We know that from the scripture above that I went over where it says, from chapter 12, that they triumphed over the devil, right? So their flesh is a part of the process, right? So their actions in their flesh. So when Jesus comes in at the end, everything's flawless, and they're not supposed to persecute me. So they sank lower and in a sense elevated me higher, okay, because, I kept going forward, even though, they didn't honor the scripture and the deals that the churches must have made with the early people, because it doesn't work in their favor when they persecute me. So again, it says, it causes all who refuse to worship the image to be killed, to have their flesh killed. Okay, this is the beast causing them to be killed. It has no power over their soul. So it's talking about it causes their flesh to be killed. Okay, so anyone who's not ready to die is not a Christian. You're all, die in obeying God through me is not a Christian. And none of you are ready to die obeying God through me, so you're not Christians.